Hey, everybody. Welcome once again to another edition of Alley Talk here on Philly Sports Network. We already had a packed episode, Phillies making moves left and right. And then today, a flurry of moves to revamp the bullpen. The back end is still mostly who you would think, but some new faces will be there this coming season. 2026 is looking exciting for the Phillies as the front office ends 2025 with a bang. I am joined today by Ben Silver. For those of you who were here last week, Ben returns. And of course, Alec Kostival, one of the OGs of the PSN Phillies team. He also was one of the OGs on the old version of Alley Talk ever since it's been rejuvenated. Not only has he been a regular, but some of the biggest and best episodes that we've had have come on the shoulders of one Alec Kostival. So Alec, Ben, how we feeling today in general? We're getting ready for the holidays, and how we feeling about the flurry of moves that we're about to break down for all these Phillies fans at home?
Well, I'll be honest.
Well, we just lost Alec, so Ben, why don't you take it off?
Goodbye, Alec. I get a big old platform here. This is the first time I've actually been upset with Dave Dombrowski for making a move, and I'm not sure it's his fault. This could have been an on-high thing from John Middleton, although given Dombrowski's comments in his recent press conference, seemed like the Phillies were not exactly happy with the way Strahm conducted himself in the second half and in the playoffs in the clubhouse. I know that the Phillies signed Taijuan Walker and he didn't turn out all that great. I know the Phillies gave Aaron Nola $172 million and his 2025 was not exactly an excellent start to that contract. But for the first time before anyone's taken the field, I'm like, guys, what are we doing here? The Phillies are a big market team. I don't care how much money they spend or don't spend. Is the Phillies team today better than it was yesterday when they had Matt Strahm? No, it's not. And unless this is specifically making room for Bo Bichette or Alex Bregman or Tatsuya Imai, I'm unhappy. I'm actually legitimately unhappy. And that doesn't mean I'm losing faith in the Philly system or in Dombrowski or the fact that the Phillies are going to win 94 games this year. But I don't think that what they did today was necessarily a smart move. And I like everything they've done so far. I like Adolis Garcia. I like Zach McCambley. I like Brad Keller. I like Brad Keller a lot, but I don't think that the Phillies bullpen is any stronger for getting rid of Matt Strahm.
Yeah, I don't know if it was necessarily a strength move.
No,
and we're gonna break it down for sure. But for those of you who don't know, and we're gonna welcome Alec back in a moment. Alec, welcome back to the show. Little power issue. But for those of you who are unaware, Matt Strahm, veteran left-hander that the club has relied on heavily the last 3 years. He's been one of the most effective left-handed relievers in all of baseball the past 3 seasons. Well, he has been traded today to the Royals for right-handed reliever Jonathan Bowlan. Bowlan is a younger player by a little bit. He has a lot of team control left. He is going to make just above league minimum. So the team is saving between $6 and $7 million when you consider the tax implications. The three left-handers did feel like a surplus, and Ben and I spoke about this last week. When you have Banks and Alvarado and Strahm at the back end, it's more of a nice to have than a need to have. Typically, bullpens will carry 2 guys. There were some recent trades of younger lefties that thought there might be a beautiful market for a left-hander. Obviously, a little bit different of a return since he's in the last year of his deal. Dombrowski said that he had been pitching well and that he I believe it was Matt Gelb who specifically asked about the comments that Strahm made. He's an outspoken guy. He asked about his comment on the pitcher's fielding practice at the end of the season. So there was a little bit of tension there. There are reports from Matt Gelb that their relationship had soured slightly, but that did not mean that they were looking to move him just to move on from him. They thought that this was a value add with all the years of control that they'll have on Bowlan. They do like what Banks brings to the table. They do feel confident that what he's done since donning a Phillies uniform, that he can continue to replicate those results, and obviously at a cheaper option than Strahm. So you get some value for a guy who, yes, he's been a veteran leader, in that bullpen. But with only 1 year of control left and them being a little cash strapped, maybe this helps them. It doesn't seem like, now, obviously, we all know Dombrowski is a guy who's not going to give it all away. It didn't seem, Todd Zalecki from MLB.com specifically asked him during today's press conference if this money will help with JT or another move. And he said, we didn't view it that way. So it seemed like a move that they were willing to make regardless of what it did to financial flexibility. This almost feels like, to me, Ben, unless they surprise us with another move, that it was a move of eventual flexibility, right? They know that they may need to make a move mid-season, and this gives them that flexibility up front. Ben, you got a chance to comment a little bit now that Alec is back. Alec, what are your thoughts on some of the comments that have come out from the Dombrowski press conference and the move of trading Matt Strahm overall?
So I think it's a little overblown that, why would we trade him away? It's nice to have that bullpen depth, but it's also something that the Phillies, you see from the aspect of, yes, he had a good season, but Strahm is getting a little bit older and, in fact, did see a little bit of a drop-off in his fastball. I think about a mile per hour difference from year to year. Yeah, so he was averaging 93.4 on his four-seamer in 2024, and that went down to 92.3 in 2025. And if you're sitting in the 92s as a reliever, you better be like one of the premier control guys. And in the playoffs, we didn't see that. So there's a chance that this is Strahm starting to decline a little bit. And in return, they get Bowlan, who does have some interesting stuff peripheral-wise. He's a mid-90s fastball guy. He's got a sinker at around 96.1, which I think its opponents hit about 161 against last year with no extra base hits. So here's a guy that could be a cheap right-handed reliever for a decent amount of time for the Phillies. He's, I think, not even an ARB yet. He's pre-ARB. So it feels like it's fine. I would have been more excited if they could have got like one or two decent prospects for him. Not talking top 100 guys, but guys that you fill out to round out the system and maybe use as trade bait come, July. But, it's fine. It saves some money, maybe gives them a little bit of flexibility. I don't think they're cash strapped. I just think there's a monetary amount that they don't want to go above. Of course, those all reset next year, and all the penalties reset next year because when we get a new CBA, that's when those are reset. So overall, it's fine. I'll miss Strahm. I liked him personally. Had a couple of cool conversations with him in the past, but it feels like a trade that it's at the perfect time for the Phillies.
So I want to ask you guys, purely from a business perspective and without the added context of the Phillies, just from any baseball club around the league, would you rather have Matt Strahm on a 1 year $7.5 million or Brad Keller on a 2 year $22 million? Because I think value-wise, Matt Strahm on a 1 year $7.5 is a more desirable contract. And I think the Phillies need Brad Keller more than they need Matt Strahm right now, given how many lefties they have and given how many righties they have. But I just think bailing on a 1 year 7.5 for a guy who was 94th percentile in xERA and also had a better ERA than his xERA. He was better than his peripherals. I just think bailing on that is a silly move.
I'm going to completely disagree.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And here's why. Keller had this amazing breakout year as a reliever. First time full year as a reliever. Velocity kicked up 3.4 miles an hour on average on his fastball, and he was nearly unhittable. In fact, the last half of the season, he allowed one earned run.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he could end up being way more valuable than this 2 year deal indicates. But guess what? He was basically a minor league invitee last year for the Cubs that just happened to break out. And guess who else did that for the Phillies just 2-3 years ago? Jeff Hoffman. This could be their new Jeff Hoffman.
Oh God, I don't want to think about what Jeff Hoffman did last year after leaving the team that invited him. Come on, man.
That's fair.
Convince
That's
me.
fair.
I'm talking about this is the breakout, Jeff Hahn.
I know. The thing is, Alec, I totally agree with you that I would rather have just completely neutral contracts. I would rather have Brad Keller than Matt Strahm. I think he's a better player. I think the need that the Phillies have for a right-handed reliever is way greater than the need they have for a left-handed reliever. Por qué no los dos? Why can't we have both Matt Strahm and Brad Keller? And I know that the money gives the team flexibility, but I don't think that in a league with no salary cap, moving off of Matt Strahm is the right move there. You know, you go into the season with a bullpen of, and I hope I don't miss anyone here, John Duran, Matt Strahm, Brad Keller, Jose Alvarado, Tanner Banks, Orion Kirkering. That's 6 guys. Which way am I moving on my camera? I don't think that there's any team in baseball who is a better back end 6 than that. And I think the Phillies bullpen is still good. I think their back 5 is still elite. But I think adding that one extra player to make it a back 6, it's just dominant. And I think the Phillies are really going to miss Strahm's presence. I trust him more than I trust Alvarado or Banks right now, for sure, by a long shot. I don't care what he did in the postseason.
I don't know. I think you need to shuffle something up, and here they're shuffling up.
Why?
2/3 of the out. Listen, I think it'll work fine. First off, you have 2 lefties in Alvarado and Banks who are both pretty good. You add a 3rd lefty. When are they going to get those reps?
What do you mean? When are they going to get those
say
reps?
Banks is back to middle relief after showing last year that he was, but he was better in high leverage situations last year. That he was in low leverage situations.
We both watch a lot of Matt Strahm and a lot of Tanner Banks. I've watched Matt Strahm for 3 years now, and there's nothing that's going to make me trust Tanner Banks more than Matt Strahm based on what I've seen, unless Tanner Banks adds like 4 miles an hour of velo to his fastball. I think Tanner Banks is good, but he's not like, you know, a 7th, 8th inning shutdown guy to bring in a playoff game. I would not trust Tanner Banks in like the 7th or 8th inning of a tight game. And I know Matt Strahm gave up that, you know,
if you
big
have
home
2
run
out
in
of
the
3
division
lefties
series
coming up, I do. I trust him.
Yeah, but I don't trust him versus righties. I mean, like, I saw Matt Strahm close out what was it? The division series in 2023. I saw him have some good innings in 24. I saw him have more good innings in the championship series in 23 too. One home run is not going to sour me on Matt Strahm, as you know.
I'm not even saying the home run does. I'm saying this is a guy that lost a mile per hour on his fastball. He's sitting around 92. He had moments in 25 where he didn't look nearly as dominant as he did in 24. There was eye evidence. There were number evidence to show that he was coming down a bit. I think it's a good get for the Royals. I think this is a fine get for the Phillies, and he saves some money. I don't see the problem. I love Strahm. I was a big fan of Strahm, but I think 2024, it shined on what his 2025 was. I saw moments in 25 watching him personally where I was like, he doesn't look that great. Like it's hard to describe exactly, but it just feels like there's some eye test things that showed that he was heading a little bit downward.
And that's fine. Go
and
ahead,
we're talking about in comparison, Ben, right? Like that's he still had a very good season, and anybody should want to trade for him with 1 year left. Some of the signs may have started to show, and I'll keep it pretty simple, right? One thing they've struggled with is having another reliable right-handed arm at the back end of the bullpen. Well, they took care of that with the Keller signing. I know that the Keller and Strahm are not directly linked, but they happened one right after the other. So they did address having another righty back there. More of the league is right-handed than left-handed. So another right-handed reliever and one less left-handed reliever isn't going to hurt you. That's why this move makes sense. Bowlan doesn't necessarily add the flexibility because he has no options left, but he does have 4 or 5 years of team control with his pre-arb and arb years. Another thing to note about Strahm, and again, this is not talking about the guy that he is, the competitor that he is. He's an A+ human. If you've been down there, part of the media, part of just with being blessed to be down there for pregame workouts. He gives everybody the time of day. But just look at this. His 2024 season, he had a 33 1/3 K rate. It dropped to 27.3% last year. His walk rate, 4.6 in his all-star season, 7.8, the second worst of his career since transitioning to the bullpen full-time. His ground ball rate was 32.4 his first season in Phillies pinstripes, 31.2 in 24, and 20.1 last season. His ground balls have gone down significantly. And of course, what does that usually mean? The fly balls go way up, 29.7% his first year to now 36% last season. So they are clearly seeing something, and the advanced pitching numbers, not even getting into the super advanced numbers, just rates, looking at rates, there is a downward trend in his performance. The fastball starts to go down, and it's like, hey, yes, could we get another year out of this? Sure. Let's see if we can get some value instead. I don't want to get in a tangent about this topic because we want to focus on the moves being made, but it feels very similar to like the Bohm rumors. We're not in a rush to move on from Alec Bohm, but if we can get something for him before he walks for nothing or we let him go for nothing, why wouldn't we at least look into that? They thought there was value here with adding another solid, cheap right-hander in that bullpen. Go ahead.
And to put a bow on that, I have two very minor things. One is, you're right. Like, we should, like, moving on from Bohm, seeing if they can get a return. I just don't like the return. I think,
that's fair.
Jonathan Bowlan, I think is a fine reliever. I think that they could have got more for Strahm. That's my big qualm. I don't mind so much moving off of Strahm as I mind getting Jonathan Bowlan for him. And B, like, the fact that we're having this conversation, moving a good reliever who is making $7.5 million, that's like what poverty teams argue about. And the Phillies should not be a poverty team. They should be, at one of the top payrolls every year, and they still will be. But like, it upsets me that we have to have this argument about moving on from a good reliever for a return that is less than I think he's valued. And as we can all see, I am all of a sudden living in heaven. I have sun streaming in from the left side. If you guys want to move on, I'm going to fix that real quick. And as we move on to something that is not me ranting about Matt Strahm.
Alec, you wrote the piece for us on that trade earlier today. So why don't you tell us if there's any final notes that you have on Bowlan and why fans who were big Strahm heads should be excited about this move?
Again, I love the sinker, but this is also a guy who was a former second-round pick. He does have a decent repertoire under him as well. So not just the sinker, but his curveball was excellent last year. His curveball, opponents only hit 154 against, although it's slugged a little bit better compared to that sinker. The changeup was a bad pitch. Slider and four-seamer were fine, but I think there's things here that they can tinker with that they could really make him into a next-level reliever and not just a, middle relief type. So this is a guy that maybe this year is just that middle relief type because there are so many names in front of him, at least to start the season on paper. You never know with how the year goes, if Alvarado's still going to be Alvarado or things of that nature, any injuries. But I do think there's a path forward for this guy to have some significant contributions in the major leagues for the Phillies. So while it does seem like a light return, and even when I first saw the return, I said I hated it in our group chat, but the more I read into it, the more I'm like, this guy seems all right. There's a chance that right now he seems like the acceptable middle relief type, but there are peripherals that make it look like he could be more than that in the future. But for right now, it's fine. It's not exciting, but I also don't think there's any great tragedy occurring.
And let's not forget, Caleb Cotham has now built his name on taking guys who used to have a lot of promise and rebuilding them in this role, right? That this is where Caleb Cotham makes his money. So the fact that this is a guy who, like you said, was a former second-round pick, was once highly touted, his ability to limit damage against right-handers last year, I know he has the platoon advantage, but it was incredible amongst rookies. A 182 average was second amongst all rookies for righty versus righty. His 49.1% ground ball rate ranked third among all AL relievers. We talked about how some of the issues that have plagued them is giving up that long ball late in the season, and they've essentially signed 2 or 3 guys who are incredible at inducing ground balls. Ultimately, Matt Strahm will be missed. Like I said, an A1 human being. If you're a member of the media and you've ever spoken with him, he's very honest, but he's a great conversation. Whether you have the notebook in your hand or not, the guy gives you the time of day. So I respect and appreciate everything that he gave to us over the last couple of years. He'll be missed, but it's a Royals team with another strong bullpen, and he's going back to where he first debuted. So it should be a nice homecoming for Strahm also.
And Kyle, you brought up Caleb Cotham, potentially being able to bring Jonathan Bowlan to the next level. I'm actually a lot more interested in seeing what he can do with their other new guy, who
transition baby. There you go.
From Arizona, Kyle Backhus, who is a sidewinding lefty, does not throw that hard, but releases the ball closer to home plate than just about anyone in baseball. So it makes that 91-mile-an-hour fastball seem a little more like 93, 94, and seems like he can really handle lefties. I don't expect a lot from Kyle Backhus this year. He is, for all intents and purposes, a 27-year-old lefty specialist who, limited, hard contact last year, but didn't do a lot other than that. I'm really excited to see how the Phillies develop this guy, what he can do in spring training and at AAA. And I'm sure he'll get some, time in the majors, when there's an injury, mid-season. But he really wasn't that bad for Arizona last year, a 4.52 ERA in something like 25 innings. I'm a little upset about giving up Avery Owusu-Asiedo. I definitely butchered that name, and I'm so sorry, Avery, if you were listening. For those who don't know, this guy, Avery Owusu-Asiedo, I think I got it right that time, was a sort of high power, low contact profile guy for Clearwater last year in single A. I think, his absolute ceiling as a major leaguer is Joey Gallo, which is pretty good, but I think sort of the contact ability is going to hold him back from that. But if you guys have any thoughts on this new guy, Kyle Backhus, if you'd heard of him, because I hadn't before the deal.
No, I hadn't heard of him, Ben, but I do love the sidewinder. It gives the Phillies a look out of the bullpen that they haven't had in a little bit. And we just spent a lot of time talking about how a third lefty was a surplus, but they went and replaced him immediately with a guy. So Banks will move up the depth chart as far as high leverage goes. This guy, two benefits to bringing him in. One, you have years of team control, and two, he has options left, which is something that they started last season almost with that as a problem. They couldn't figure out how to fill out the bullpen with guys that had options. So the second they sent somebody down, they knew they had to figure something out. You saw it with Ruiz. You saw it with Hernandez. You saw it with a few other guys where, hey, we like these guys, but they're struggling right now. And unfortunately, we have to cut them loose instead of being able to send them down. So this gives them a little bit more flexibility than they've had in the past couple of years. And I'd say ultimately, yes, the other move didn't, but Keller, they have a lot of faith in him. This move gives you some flexibility, and they still have two spots at the end of the bullpen where they're going to use some guys with minor league options, or one or two spots left at the end.
Zach
right?
McCambley has to stay on the roster.
A Rule 5 guy, right?
Yeah.
Right. But it gives them a little bit of flexibility that they didn't necessarily have last year. And it's like the first time during Dombrowski's career where the bullpen is a focus. He's not been known for building out strong bullpens. He builds everything else out. And he seems to be, although I agree, maybe the immediate strength would have been a little bit higher if they had kept Strahm. I think that if you're building for the long term, these are the types of moves that you make.
Yeah. I know we talked a lot about things that I was upset about. Alec, did you have something else to add before? I know I cut you off before we move off the topic of Kyle Backhus and bullpens.
No, I was just going to say, I think this is actually going to be the best Phillies bullpen since the second half of 2024. Of course, you had Estevez, you had Hoffman, you didn't have Duran, but it might even be better. But they also got a little bit younger. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. I think the moves could help them, especially for the future of the franchise in the next 3 years. If you can develop some relievers and not have to worry about paying high price tags, and especially the point that I've heard brought up with these signings, with the trades and the signings, it really looks for the first time that the Phillies will not have to trade for a reliever at the deadline.
You never know.
They have done.
Yeah, but sure doesn't feel like it, right? It feels like they're set up. Yeah.
I would actually make a bet,
or at least the
with
high
both of
impact
you guys
guy
right now, that the Phillies trade for at minimum a major league reliever at the deadline.
I mean, I
would
wouldn't be
absolutely
shocked
make
if it
that.
happens, but it's no longer.
But you might not be shopping at the top of the market. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You might
You're
be
not
looking for
a
that
closer.
for that middle of the.
They're not going to be
a guy who's adding
shipping out
depth,
their
so.
breakout prospects like they did for
No,
the
definitely
past few seasons. And that's what's going to really help backfill some of the system is they're burning, those mid-level guys for relievers.
Now
And
we
it
do have
feels
a
like-
comment in there from Alex, who's a regular. Alec and Ben, you guys are both familiar with him. Roddy's out on YouTube. That kind of leans into what Ben was saying, a slightly different take, but the same idea. And it's something that I've thought about a lot in the past. Bullpen pitchers and relievers are so volatile year to year, especially for guys who haven't done it long term. Alex rather puts in there. Strahm has done it for a few years now. Keller's done it for one. The two guys that they just brought in were technically rookies last season. Bullpen arms are so all over the place. I'd rather have the guy I've seen do it for multiple seasons than a guy who's maybe a one-year success story. So does that factor into how you guys feel about the moves overall? I mean, it was a factor for me. I just kind of weighed ultimately the totality of the decisions, and I still like where the bullpen stands. But Alec, Ben, if you guys feel a way about Alex's comment.
Yeah, so I actually feel the complete opposite about it. Because a lot of times when you have breakout relievers, you really don't get more than like 3 really solid years. It's a rarity when a guy becomes like a relief ace after kind of, just being either a starter or kind of a swingman and just a mid-level guy taking that next step. You rarely see it happen for more than a few years. So you saw Strahm get that boost in 2023 and take that to the next level in 24, 25, having another good year. Keller is just starting that, in my opinion. I think Keller is going to be one of the better relievers in baseball. And I'll say that right now. He's going to be one of the better right-handed relievers in baseball over the next 3 seasons. Whether that third season with the Phillies or not, we don't know, but 2 of them, I think this is a great move.
I actually want to push back against that one thing you said there with relievers coming out of the starting rotation into the bullpen getting a boost. I don't think that's because, teams are figuring them out necessarily. I think that's a lot to do with A, age, but much larger B, just relievers being volatile because they're pitching so few innings and it's such a small sample size. Over 60 innings, anything can happen. You can have one outing where you give up 7 runs and your season is essentially over. And then by the next year, you're a year older. And, most guys who start in the rotation, switch to the bullpen, they transition pretty late into their careers. I don't think it's a problem with, only getting a short boost from that. I think it's more a problem of just guys aging and relievers just being weird. That's why Dombrowski tends to not make bullpens a focus because it's easy to build out a bullpen in season. You figure out who's doing well right then, and you move them to the bullpen because they're cheap. Bullpen is the easiest thing to build on a roster. Rotation and starting lineups a heck of a lot harder.
Well, you mentioned age. Strahm is 34 years old.
He is. Yeah, that's a very good point.
I think I saw some signs last year from just eye test wise that it's just like, yeah, Strahm's a good reliever, but he peaked in 2024, and I don't think you were ever going to get that performance again. And what you said about relievers, how from 160 inning sample to another can be a little bit different. It felt like he got extremely lucky at times in 24, but it just kept working.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, his peripherals in 24 and 25, I think, are a little closer than people expect. I do think Strahm is going to regress, don't get me wrong, but I bet he regresses to like a 3.2 or a 3.3. Just I don't see, him falling apart, at least not for another year or two. And I could be wrong. Baseball's a fickle thing, man.
Baseball is very weird like that. And sorry, Kyle, to keep talking about this.
No,
subject,
it's all good.
But I think you could see even this season, Bowlan having a better ERA than
totally
Strahm.
possible.
I think that's totally within the realms of possibility.
I don't think it'll happen, but like baseball's weird, man. Anything can happen in a 16 sample size. You know, sometimes the Sacramento A's beat the New York Yankees. It happens, you know, and in that few innings, you know, Jonathan Bowlan might just be good. Caleb Cotham might unlock something. Maybe
who knows? Bacchus might even contribute.
Bacchus might be good too. I think he will contribute. But
he is at the Bacchus end of the bullpen, so
hell yeah. Good
Oh man, there you go.
And with that note,
and on that note, I think we've wrapped up as much Strahm talk as anyone can manage. We did.
I agree. But that being said, I don't think we're done quite yet with bullpen talk, because before today's announcements, we've touched on him a little bit, but we really want to dive into it. The Brad Keller signing happened a little bit ago. 2 years, $11 million. No longer are they taking a 1-year flyer on a rebuild project. They feel confident that Keller, with his once hyped starting pitching status, leading into a stellar season as a reliever last year for a playoff-bound team in the Cubs, a 2-year deal. They've realized that they could spend money on a reliable guy instead of Corey Knebel or Craig Kimbrell or Jordan Romano, or insert whatever the 1-year flyer that they've done each year. You have a guy who is likely going to be a 7th or 8th inning guy. Has length if you need it, can go more than 1 inning. He's a former starter. I don't think they'll use him in that role. They've committed to him being in the bullpen, but it gives you a lot of flexibility, and they are committing to a strong bullpen, something that seemed to be something that they avoided the last couple of seasons. So Keller, my initial reactions were great. This is a great move. They've added another strong arm to the back end of that bullpen. It's a righty. Only 1 earned run allowed in the second half last season. So not considering the other moves that were made. Alec, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on Brad Keller arriving in Philadelphia?
All you got to do is open Baseball Savant, type in Brad Keller, and look at those 2025 MLB percentile rankings.
Look at the
this
red,
guy.
Man.
Is
red all over
bright red. He's looking straight like Santa Claus on his page. That's all I'm saying. He's got a little splash of blue with his extension being on the low end for major leaguers. But you know what? That's just Phillies colors right there. Just a little splash of blue. But no, this is a guy who added 3.4 miles an hour onto his fastball and absolutely dominated for the Cubs. A 2.07 ERA in 69.2 innings pitched. Averaged above a strikeout per innings pitched for the first time in his career. The next closest he was to that was, I think it was like 8.1 K per 9. I think that was back in 2019. And so this is a guy that's very much evolved his game. And again, you look at these numbers, a 2.82 expected ERA, a 200 expected batting average, fastball velo up to 97.1, average exit velocity only 86.7. All of those are at the 93rd or better percentile in baseball. Pitching run value 92nd percentile. Hard hit percentage 30.6. That is the 99th percentile in all of baseball. Again, I really believe that the Phillies are getting what is going to be one of the best relievers in baseball for the next 3 years. I truly believe that. I'm just really excited that they signed a guy who seems to be just breaking out and has the peripherals to show that, hey, that wasn't a fluke. His stuff evolved. I'm hyped for Brad Keller.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me is that he's got a slow heartbeat. We saw he can perform in the postseason. And when he's not striking guys out, he can throw 100 now all of a sudden. Like, how about that? Drive line, baby. He's got a slow heartbeat, and he allows a lot of soft contact. I know that's not really his game. You look at his stats page, and he's like, oh, he strikes a lot of guys out, and he keeps the ball on the ground. But the other thing about keeping the ball on the ground is that you're keeping it in front of the fielders, right? He's 99th percentile in hard hit rate last year, and his average exit velo was 86.7. That's 94th percentile. I know we talked about a lot of red on Baseball Savant. I know not everyone loves the stats, but like, you look at the guy pitch, and he keeps the ball on the ground. pitches break down. He's got the sinker, he's got the changeup, which no one talks about, looks great, and he's got the sweeper, which has really evolved into an excellent pitch. So I'm really, really excited to see what he does out of the Phillies pen. I think that's a guy who can not only strike some dudes out and also ground into a few double plays as well.
Yeah, it's the whiff rate was a problem for the Phillies last year. Even if they were putting the ball in contact, even if hitters were putting the ball in play and making contact, even if it was soft contact, they still weren't getting a lot of swing and misses. Keller's stuff definitely plays up a little bit compared to Strahm. Strahm was in the bottom, near the bottom of all qualified pitchers last year. Keller was top third of the 147 qualified pitchers. So something to keep in mind that, that they are trying to get a little bit more swing and miss, a little bit more soft contact. So a lot of these moves were made in that vacuum. But to add on to what Alex said, I mean, his increase, the fact that he has a full repertoire helps him battle against both sides of the plate. So I mentioned it in the video I posted on IG for PSN, but he has the sweeper for the righties with the sinker to help force that ground ball. And then against lefties, he uses that sharper slider mixed in with his changeup to keep them off balance and force things into the ground. So yes, his fastball is the heftiest pitch. It's the pitch that averages 97 and touches 100. Another huge firepower at the end of that bullpen, but his full repertoire remaining as it was as a starter, and the development, Ben, that you mentioned on that sweeper has really made him a difference maker against both sides of the plate, or both sides of the platoon, rather. Mm-hmm. Not much more to talk about that because I know we mentioned Keller a lot earlier, but any last thoughts on Keller
I'm excited
before we move on to the other big signing from Monday?
Yeah, I think we got everything. It's not that controversial, right? Brad Keller's awesome. I can't wait to see him.
Exactly. The other big move, and it was actually huge tease from Ben. If you were part of the show last week, on Friday, right before we left, with a huge assist from chat, love chat, huge assist from them. We were looking for anybody else who could be an outfielder on this Phillies roster, and they mentioned Adolis Garcia. Ben, you dove into it last week a little bit, obviously a little bit more to dive into because the Phillies have signed him to a 1-year, $10 million deal. All signs point to them starting the season at the very least with him being the everyday right fielder. Huge improvement defensively in right field, but the swing and miss and the swing happy that we've gotten used to from Nick Castellanos out there, if you watch the Phillies every day, that will be something to watch and likely will be criticized by Phillies fans heavily on another 1-year deal. The next Kepler, the next Merrifield, they may refer to him as, but I have a little bit more high hopes for this one. Ben, since you talked about him and teased it on Friday, I want you to lead us off. Why should people be excited about Adolis Garcia?
Okay, I'm gonna ask you all to close your eyes. It's the 7th inning of NLDS Game 4. I'm not going to say who the Phillies are playing because, frankly, I don't know. But I know that the Phillies are down 2, and Adolis Garcia is at the plate. You got, some sort of like funky righty, and he's got a sinker, he's got a sweeper, and he throws 2 sweepers, and Adolis Garcia just whiffs at both of them. But he throws like a fastball, way upstairs, and Adolis holds back on that. He puts like a splitter in the dirt, and Adolis holds back on that. And the crowd is rising to its feet. They're roaring. And the pitcher winds up. And I'm just going to let you guys imagine just the flight path of that ball into the left field stands as Citizens Bank Park just erupts, right? Like the stadium is bouncing as the Phillies, end up, taking the lead off of that bomb to go win the division series. I'm not going to outdream. I'm not going to outdream myself. I'm not going to say it's a championship series or the World Series. Not that Adolis Garcia hasn't done it in the World Series, right? Walk-off home run in Game 1 of the 2023 series against the Diamondbacks. But the thing that Adolis Garcia gives you, right, is elite defense. I'm not going to say he's definitely going to be a better hitter than Nick Castellanos, but his ceiling is higher than Nick Castellanos, and his floor is about where Castellanos is at. I trust Kevin Long to get a little bit more out of Garcia. All of the Rangers hitters were down last year, and for whatever reason, I never know whether it's Globe Life Field or Globe Life Park now. Whichever Globe Life they play in is not very much a hitter's stadium anymore, and I think getting Garcia out of that environment with fans behind him that are a little bit more fiery than those guys in Arlington. I think that's going to do wonders for his game. I'm not going to come out and say he's going to hit 40 bombs again, but having that kind of potential in the lineup is going to be really helpful for the Phillies. And if Crawford is in center field, his defense, Garcia's defense and right, is going to go a long ways to making Crawford's job easier in center.
Definitely agree. Alec, thoughts on Garcia, initial thoughts on Garcia being the, at least for now, the everyday right fielder for the Phillies.
Meh.
Okay.
I think it's fine. I don't have pictures of grandeur. I think the best season that he could have for the Phillies is hitting 240 with a 300 on base percentage and like a 450 slug. Like
that's the best you can imagine.
Yeah, that's the best I can imagine, because guess what? That's basically his line from one of his All-Star years.
Yeah, but like I
don't know if I see him hitting 39 bombs again, but you're right.
Yeah, no, I don't think I see that either. I don't see 850, but like I'm just saying his ceiling is above a 750 OPS. And I feel like we can dream bigger than that.
Listen, so here, 2021, his first All-Star year, he hit 243 with a 454 slugging percentage, 286 on base percentage. 2022, 250, 300 on base percentage, 456 slug. The outliers, 2023, of course, when he hit 39 home runs, he only hit 245, 328 on base percentage, and a 508 slug. The last 2 years, it's been a 400 slug and a 394 slug. I think the change of scenery is going to help him, but I really am thinking the ceiling is like a 450 slug. I think he's like going to give 25 to 30 home runs for the Phils, so he's probably doing better than what Nick Castellanos can do right now power-wise. He's way better range. He's got a cannon of an arm. I think that's going to give, and what I think this deal mostly is about is giving Justin Crawford the best shot possible to be a center fielder, because you're giving him a plus defender in left field with Brandon Marsh and a plus defender Gold Glove winner in right field with Adolis Garcia. So I think that the defense itself pays for the contract. I don't have much grandeur in terms of thinking about his offense, but I look to one thing from him, and it's going back to 2024. I'm writing off 2025 as an outlier, just throwing it aside. But you go back to 2024 and you look at his home and away splits, because Globe Life Park has been a place where hitters have gone to die over the past 2 years. He hit 203 at home with a 634 OPS. But on the road, he hit 244 with a 435 slugging for a 731 OPS. That's kind of the line that I'm expecting from him. I'm thinking of basically Maikel Franco with more swing and miss. And more power.
Maikel Franco would have been good if he played good defense. I think Alec, you're spot on there. That like 730 to 750 range is exactly what I expect from Adolis Garcia.
And that would be perfect.
I hope that he can, have an 800 OPS, and I think it's possible. I don't think it's likely. I think it's possible.
I think it's like 10% possible. That's where I'm at with it.
It would be a nice thing and a nice welcome surprise, but I think that they're thinking more in that 750 range themselves. Return to what he once was, not turn him into something he's never been, right? I think that's kind of the thought process. He's not big on walks. He is a big swing and miss guy. I think for pitches out of the zone, the only person who swung at pitches out of the zone in a higher rate than Garcia last year of qualified hitters was Nick Castellanos. So you're getting kind of the guy you already had. But defensive metrics, I don't love any of them. I think the reason that nobody loves any of them is because they change every year. And there's a new one that seems to be better or different than another one. Whether you use OAA, whether you use DRS, whether you use any range factor, any of these things that nobody could tell you how they're calculated. They just know how to enter the numbers into the calculator, right? Like any of those things points to a significant improvement. Let's just talk about one of the more common ones used, defensive runs saved. Castellanos, of qualified right fielders last year, had a negative 11 defensive runs saved, the worst among all right fielders who qualified last season. Adolis Garcia had plus 16, the best of all qualified right fielders last year. So you're literally going from the worst possible defender by this metric. And you can, obviously we're ignoring the eye test out here because I thought watching Nick, it was nowhere near as bad as it seemed, but these metrics are there for a reason. And Garcia is literally the top of the heap. So you go from bottom to top, even with the same offensive profile, roughly. I think that's a lot. And then you take into account a few things for me. One is, you mentioned it, Ben, Garcia played in a injury-ridden lineup, becoming basically the only consistent player in that lineup for the majority of the season. And then you add in the fact that he's not going to have that issue here necessarily, right? He doesn't have to be the guy. He just has to be one of the guys. And I think that's going to bode well for him to relax a little bit more. During his introductory press conference, he said one of the things that he wants to work on is not playing the hero and focusing on seeing pitches in the zone and taking advantage when they're there. He will be tasked with providing protection for Harper and Schwarber, so that's a little bit of pressure. But when you have Harper and Schwarber and Turner and potentially JT returning and Alec Boehm, who outside of last year was always good with the pressure turned up, there's reasons to think that they'll be able to make some adjustments. The Phillies feel confident that it is more about his approach than it is diminishing skills. I know he's a little bit older, but they feel confident that it's more about his approach than it is those diminishing skills, which is a plus if that ends up being the case. And one thing I want to remind people about, because people seem to forget, the entire lineup was challenged to have a cleaner approach. It resulted in less slug, but way higher on base percentages across the board. Nick Castellanos, through the first 2 months of the season, was on pace to have the best walk rate of his career because of the messaging in camp, in spring training, and the early season from Kevin Long. If Garcia can stay within himself, not try to be the hero, and listen to the coaching of Kevin Long, for however you want to feel about Kevin Long, he has a long history of doing this and a huge name for himself across the league because of what he's been able to do with guys. Even if he can tone it down a little bit, those numbers are going to go up. His walk rate's going to go up. His strikeout rate's going to go down, and he's going to be a solid contributor in the middle of a playoff roster. And then we talked about it on last Friday. One of the things that this team is missing, all of their veteran leaders seem to, as they've gotten older, adopt a more calm persona. Don't get too high, don't get too low emotionally. Garcia, I don't know about the lows of the lows. I'll have to reach out to some Rangers reporters to see their thoughts on him ultimately. But we have seen multiple times this guy get himself jacked up for the moment, and he shows that fire that has kind of been missing from this team's lineup the last couple of years. Something you thought you were getting with Nick, something that Bryce has started to grow out of, something that is missing from a lot of the other guys. And I'm not saying that one way or the other is the right way to do it, but I think you need a little bit of all of it. And Garcia gives you something that you haven't had in a couple seasons in the middle of that lineup. So I'm excited about the move, even if it feels like another 1 year flyer. I think a lot of the things that he brings to the table is going to make this different than what you've seen out of the guys like Keller and Merrifield in the past.
So can I just say something?
Of course.
Would Adolis Garcia not look great in the City Connects? Because that's all I've been thinking about the last 5 minutes.
While you've been on this rant, I'll tell you what.
I'm thinking probably not great in the pinstripes, but man, launching a bomb in the City Connects on a Friday night, for whatever reason, I see it. And I hate the City Connects.
Or the Powder Blues even? Ooh.
Yeah, the Powder Blues. He's a guy who needs a bit of a dark uniform to bring out that sort of fire in him. Oh, I need it.
I like where he
had so bad, man.
I like it.
And he's so bad because one of these days he's going to hit one like 460 feet. The Phillies only have one guy, Kyle Schwarber, that can really do that. I need a righty who can do that too on this ball club. Put one into the second deck out there. I know we've talked about Adolis a lot, and if any of you guys have any thoughts on him before we move on, I did want to discuss Ani Kalambi a little bit, but If you guys,
Yeah, I had one more thought on him. So
Please.
the one thing that I'd say, because I don't want it to just be all positive in here. I do like the positivity, but I don't want to ignore things that you could look at. So one thing, over the last 2 seasons, we talked about how Garcia does not have a propensity to walk. He's a free swinger. We talked about some of the challenges with Texas, but over the last 2 seasons, there was 123 qualified hitters who played the outfield. Garcia had the worst on-base percentage of all of them. 123rd out of 120.
Where's Castellanos?
I didn't look, but he's not far off from the bottom. But that's how much of a struggle it's been for him lately. So hopefully that change in approach can make a difference. Hopefully it results in him staying in the zone. He's seen one of the higher percentages of fastballs outside of the zone. If he can recognize that and stay off it, that should be an adjustment all in and of itself. If you look at his Baseball Savant page, he still has red. He's in the upper fourth of hard hit rates, barrel rates. He's still there when it comes to making contact. So if he can stay within the zone even a little bit more, those numbers should get closer to what we remember from that 2023 run. Not saying it'll be the same, but you should see a marketed improvement in that regard. That was my last note on him, though. Alec, I don't know if you had anything else to add.
Yeah, no, one more thing. The one thing you said that Nick Castellanos, wasn't as bad a fielder as like his numbers indicate. If you watched him though, like he wasn't going to drop a fly ball. He wasn't going to look like 2017 Rhys Hoskins, but he sure moved like a brick wall. Or 2018 Rhys Hoskins, excuse me. That's when they put him in the outfield. He was slow. He did not get the balls.
Oh, yeah.
His range was negative. No matter what kind of range factor stats there are, I swear they're negative. It's not that he's a bad fielder. He just does not move like you need an outfielder to move. And that's why they've discussed, or with MLB Central or whatever, saying, oh, yeah, I would move to first base if a team needs me to move to first base.
You're terrible at third base, bud.
Well, first base is different. First base is different.
Can't really feel the ground ball. But Alec, I did want to ask, what would a negative range factor imply? How would that work?
Like
you don't move. The ball
absorbed
becomes
into the ground.
If you make
sand
no plays,
everywhere.
If you are making no plays, you have a range factor of 0. So somehow you were giving the other team extra outs.
I've never seen a negative infinity outs above average, but
if anyone can do it, it's Castellanos.
Jess, please don't come for me.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say
Jess,
is
I'm so sorry.
We'll get more into the Nick part of the conversation after the holiday.
Your husband will be loved in retrospect.
But he's it's an interesting case how he's still under contract. There's been no trade rumors. There's been no cut. I mean, they mentioned potentially cutting him. At least reports have. There's been no mention of him when talking about the outfield, but he's still under contract and on this team. So it's something that we will talk about after the holiday. I don't want to get lost in it right now. It's funny on the Baseball Tonight podcast. Maybe. I don't know. But on the Baseball Tonight podcast, Hembo and Buster Olney talked about how it's an expensive price tag, but basically one of the perfect platoon partners for Brandon Marsh is the guy they already have in the building in Nick Castellanos. But it's a matter of will he accept that role? Probably not.
If he didn't have to play the field, yes.
Yeah, there's a lot different of it, but like they're talking about just splits versus lefties and then Marsh's splits versus righties. Ultimately, not what we're going to get into right now. Ben, you said you had a topic you wanted to get into, so I'll toss to you, and then we will wrap up the show a little bit after that.
Can I say one more thing about Nick Castellanos real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
It's going to take a while, but I do think he should be worth like a 1-year, $5 million deal to some lower end team to use as their DH. Or if they want to work him out as a first baseman, sure, why not? But I think that's a $5 million shot that somebody is going to want to take. They just don't want to be anyone to jump on it. Why would you jump on it in December when you can jump on it in February and look like...
I was going to say, and the problem is, like, you're talking about a 1-year $5, but if I wait long enough, I can get him on a 1-year veteran minimum. So, like, they're going to cut him, and then he'll just be available.
And you're competing with possible other teams.
True. So someone who needs to spend money, like, the A's or the Marlins, someone's got to get in on this.
Come on, Miami, you know you want this for $5 million.
All right. Ben, take us to the next one, and then we'll wrap up the conversation with the catcher, because that's really the only position that we haven't addressed yet.
This will probably be the only time you ever see me bring up two things negative in a podcast ever, when it's not actual games. I am crushed that the Phillies are losing Ani Kalambi, who's been the assistant GM since 2021, heads up the research and development department for the Phillies. And for those of you guys who don't know, Ani is the guy who makes a lot of like the fringe moves for the Phillies. He's the guy who finds the Jeff Hoffmans and the Tanner Banks and the Moises Chases. He's the guy who brings in, rounds out the last, 3-4 spots on a roster. And I think the Phillies have really done well with that the last couple of years with guys like Weston Wilson and Otto Kemp. And I know Otto Kemp was a draftee, but I believe he was drafted after Kalambi's time here started. I've actually met Kalambi in person twice. I was at a season ticket holder like luncheon a few years ago, and Aaron Nola and Orion Kirkering and Rob Thompson were supposed to show up, and I believe Kirkering and Nola got like trapped in a snowstorm, so they just trotted Ani Kalambi down there instead, and everyone was really upset. A bunch of guys went over to talk to Rob Thompson, and I actually went over to Ani Kalambi, and I was like, "Hey man, I'm a huge fan of your work." People do not talk enough about what Ani Kalambi has done for this ball club, and clearly the Nationals and the learners in DC see that in him. They know that he's a rising star, and it's not like the Phillies had anywhere to keep him. You can't promote him to either of the GM jobs that Sam Fold and Preston Madeline both have right now. You obviously can't promote him to president of baseball ops, Dave Dombrowski. He was as high as he was going to reach in the Philly system. So if another team came along and offered him a GM spot like Washington did, he's gone, man. It sucks. And the Phillies are really going to miss him. I think Nationals fans should be really, really excited. And it's a shame that the Phillies don't have one of the smartest young minds in baseball anymore in their building.
Can I just say one thing, Alec, before you add anything? And we kind of joked around about this right before the show started about you two versus me. The GM, the manager, and the president of baseball operations at the Washington Nationals are all younger than me. Doesn't make me feel great. It's great for them, but it doesn't make me personally feel great. That's the only comment I have on this topic, other than Dombrowski. I did attend the Zoom call with Dombrowski earlier. He obviously waxed poetic and raved about Kalambi. So
is he older than you, Kyle?
Dombrowski barely. Yeah, he's just by a little bit.
Maybe by half his age.
But ultimately, they spoke very highly of him on that Zoom call. So if the team that's losing him is speaking highly of him on the way out with barely a prompt, I'd say that the Nationals should and their fans should be excited about it.
Yeah, from what
Alec,
I
any
heard,
thoughts on?
Well, first thought, how is your kid doing at Temple?
I don't know, Ben. You've probably bumped into him. How's he doing at Temple? No, he's doing great. Finished his first semester, all A's except for one class, but it's the last time he's going to have to take calculus, so he's feeling pretty good about it.
Anyway, so there's a reason why the Phillies had to have this guy as an assistant GM title. That was the only way they were able to sign him away to be kind of their head of the basically analytics department. So yeah, like you said, Ben, there was no room for him to progress right now with the Phillies. So it's a shame that they're going to lose him. But it's the nature of baseball. He really does seem like he could be one of the futures of famous baseball front offices. Hopefully he doesn't help the Nationals succeed, but who knows? I'm going to be completely honest though. I didn't know who he was before yesterday. I had no clue. No clue.
People were very upset that I tweeted out saying that, the Phillies would be upset to lose him. They're like, God, you've never tweeted about him before. Here's your search history. You've never said anything about him in Colombia. I'm like, dude, I've met him twice. Like, just because I don't tweet something online does not mean I don't know
when you met him. That's your mistake.
I unfortunately, as much as I wish I was chronically online, I cannot, I can't claim
your ability to socialize in person by constantly having your phone in front of you. Haven't you learned anything?
No, I really haven't.
Temple's not
It's kind of a
teaching you
shame.
guys anything, huh?
No,
Jeez.
they should
If
be
you want to
better.
be in this world of sports, you better log every single moment.
Maybe against
Dombrowski
Atlanta,
did say that they
right.
have a list of potential replacements for him, some internal, some external. So look for that move to probably be made after the holiday. But definitely something worth noting, Ben, for sure, that this guy brought a lot to the table for the Phillies, and losing him could be a bad hit to their front office. So. Anything else on the Kalani move before we move on to our final topic of the show? That is, what's next for the Phillies?
I mean, I'm ready to talk about catcher if you guys all are.
Let's get right into it. So, last bit of things or housekeeping for the Phillies to do is to address the catcher position. They have every intention of bringing back, every hope of bringing back JT Realmuto on a short-term deal. They do have an offer out to him. Nothing has changed. Dombrowski renewed that sentiment today. Nothing has changed. They are offer out, waiting to hear back from JT. That is still their primary goal, is to bring back JT Realmuto for the upcoming season, likely a couple of seasons. Before we get into the catcher options, whether who they can pivot to if JT decides he's going to go elsewhere, if someone blows him away with an offer, whatever the reason is. Outside of catcher, because this is really the only position that they haven't addressed that is a need, how do we feel about the Phillies right now? Are they not considering the catcher, are they a better team right now than they were on the final day of the season?
Probably not. Really? Like they've added Brad Keller and Adolis Garcia, but they've lost Ranger Suarez, who I think might outdo those two guys, and Strahm as well. Like I think I'd rather have them both. I think the Phillies are certainly positioned well. I like the additions of Crawford and Garcia and Brad Keller, but I certainly wouldn't call them better. Maybe the same, but not better for sure.
I would say slightly better. And here's why, because as long as Zach Wheeler returns to at least, let's say, 80% his form, the Phillies were out without him in the playoffs, and that's the only reason why there wasn't discussion between whether Ranger Suarez or Jesus Luzardo would be in the bullpen for that series against the Dodgers. I think they can cover the loss of Suarez. Painter, I really hope shows up and shows out, because I know the Phillies think he can. They really want him to. I think that's going to be a big storyline of the season. I do really love the Keller addition. I think the Adolis Garcia addition really is going to give Justin Crawford his best chance to shine in center field. So if they can make that stick, his offensive profile is fine for a center fielder. I think he's going to hit like 280, just unremarkably 280. But yeah, no, I think this team is slightly better off, slightly, disregarding catcher.
Yeah, I think the money saving from Strahm, I almost would assume that they'll put that into starting pitching depth.
Say better.
If anything has been proven over the last couple of years, it's that you need that depth, especially with the uncertainty around Zach Wheeler. Although promising, Brad Keller went through the same procedure that Wheeler did a couple years ago, and his stuff has improved, albeit in a different role, but he came back healthy. So promising sign there and other guys have come back healthy too. I don't want to just put it on one guy, but you do have examples in the building of people who've been able to bounce back. So hope that he is able to bounce back. But if you sign that starting pitching depth, I would imagine they'll give Painter a run, right? You're not going to just look at, if he struggles in April, okay, let's send him back down to work on things. But if you have that starting pitching depth, it allows you to be more comfortable sending him down if needed, right? If he's struggling similar to how he did last year. Obviously, all hope is that doesn't happen. Alec?
So this just came from Matt Strahm, posted on Twitter at 3 p.m. It's his basically farewell statement. If you don't mind, I'll read it real quick here.
Yeah, give it to us.
To the Phillies fans, I can't begin to express what you've meant to me and my family over the last 3 years. I came to Philadelphia because of you. The atmosphere, the passion, the expectation to win. There's something truly special about this city and the mentality here. I want to say nothing more than to bring I wanted nothing more than to bring a World Series back to Philly. I'm sorry I fell short of that goal. To my teammates, it was an honor to wear this uniform alongside you and compete every day with a group that truly cared about winning and about each other. Y'all have not only helped me grow as a player, but as a father and husband. I miss every single guy in that clubhouse, and I've never experienced anything like it. Then he goes to Newtown, Edgemont Little League, and everyone in Newtown Square. Thank you for welcoming my family with open arms and making Philadelphia feel like home from day one. And to the Challenger Angels, there's nothing like a game at Gable Park. Thank you for making my time in Philly so memorable and for always cheering me on. Just as you supported me, I'll always be cheering for you. My family will miss those Sunday nights. Thank you for everything, Philly. You'll always be a special part of my journey.
That's just beautiful. Doesn't get much better of a send-off than that. And he strokes the Phillies fans' ego on the way out the door. My goodness, man. Woo. Man, what a message. Like we said, he will be missed regardless of your thoughts on the trade.
Absolutely. And it's nice that the statements were very, very meaningful. You could feel it in those statements that he truly means those words. And it's happy that, we can reflect on a statement like that instead of whatever, if there was any sort of beef between management and Strahm or whatever, because that stuff's always all in the past anyway at this point.
For sure. We mentioned it briefly, and we'll get back to it momentarily. After the moves that the Phillies made today, including Nick Castellanos, they have 38 men on the 40-man roster, so they do have a little bit of flexibility to make another move. One of those moves is going to have to be a catcher. I doubt they will move forward with Garrett Stubbs and Rafael Marchand as the 1 and 2 options. That brings us back to JT. I think we're just going to have to wait until the new year to see what JT wants to do or what the terms of the contract are if he does come back. But guys, there's a chance that JT Realmuto is not in a Phillies uniform next season. Ben, who do they turn to if that's the case?
Shame Harry Ford's off the market, isn't he?
Yeah. He was traded for a left-handed reliever, by the way.
I know. It would have been real cheap. Certainly could have. Strahm might have done more than that. Strahm might have gotten us a prospect back. Might have gotten the Phillies a prospect back. Probably Victor Caratini. He'll probably not cost that much. I can't imagine it'd be any more than Adolis Garcia. Pitchers love to throw to him. His defense is all right. It's not better than JT's, even though JT's is declining. But I wouldn't be upset with a move for Victor Caratini. I think that he's a fine stopgap, and that means you can use the JT money elsewhere. I'd still love to see if the Phillies can bring around Bichette or Bregman, like Stephen Garrison in the chat was saying. Both of those guys could be a real help to Philly. 2026, 27, 28, 29. It's going to be a multi-year deal. So I'd be fine with Caratini if it meant the Phillies signed Amai or one of those pedigree third basemen.
If the breaking point for JT Realmuto is a third year, I really don't want JT Realmuto for a third year. I really think his value is really going to be focused in 2026 and then 2027 and 2028. You really don't know what you're getting.
Yeah. If there's any value in 26.
Yeah, we're talking about a late 30s catcher. Actually, Caratini was the guy I was going to bring up as well. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets like a 1 year, $7.5 million. So basically his Matt Strahm. But this is a guy that's hit over 259 the past 3 seasons. We're talking OPS over 700. Not spectacular, but does provide some upside offensively for the catching position where you wouldn't see that. I think if they were to go that route, I would say they split time 50-50 between Caratini and Marchand and see how that works. I don't think I'm ready to give Marchand, a lion's share of a catcher's season. I am still worried about the injury history. He was healthy last year, which is nice to see, and he did kind of pick it up in the second half compared to what he started, which was very, very low. But I do not want the Phillies to give JT Realmuto a third year. And I think one thing that is an indicator of that, I was listening to the Phillies show, of course, Ruben Amaro Jr. being part of that, was the Phillies general manager when they gave Carlos Ruiz a 3-year extension. And he himself said he wished he didn't give Ruiz that third year.
Yep.
So we're talking about a guy that's going to turn 35 in less than 100 days. I don't want a 38-year-old catcher captaining the Phillies backstop position 3 years from now. It's a bad taste.
And he's already declining so much. His OPS was 700 last year. And it's gone down every year.
I think he'll still be around that. I think he can still slightly be, Victor Caratini plus offensively. But I think the only benefit of re-signing JT Realmuto is you don't have to worry about the pitch framing because of the ABS system. I think that's the only plus.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't.
But I'd say on the flip side, a catcher has to have a better understanding of what the strike zone is, and I'd trust JT to do that more than anybody else.
Why? Why do you don't have to have a better understanding?
You have to understand when to challenge, when to not. Those moments are key, man.
Yeah, I agree, but I think that's going to be more. I think it's a more straightforward skill for most catchers than framing. I think most major league catchers know when something's a ball or a strike. And the other thing is it does make, JT's arm behind the plate more valuable. I think that really is going to raise, the price of a guy who can throw out a base runner.
Especially with the increase in steals.
Yeah, exactly.
Just to hop over to the comments, our boy Steve Garrison from last week returning. Ben, remember, he was popping off all over the comments. He's the one who gave us the Adolis Garcia. No, there he is to take his credit. He's here for it. Knew they were going to get Adolis Garcia. He said it. Not giving JT more than 3 years. I would be okay with a 3 year if the third year was a vesting option. You play a certain amount of games over the 2 seasons, and you play a certain amount of games at catcher in that second season.
Totally agree.
Maybe if the AAV is okay.
Exactly. And the third year has to be for less than the other two, right? Like
if it's 3 years 36, 3 years 40, I guess.
Yeah, no more than 340.
Sort of vesting. But 40 would be my limit.
What if we say, like, okay, Steve put it in here already, but let's say if it's a 2 year 30 with a vesting, the third year's a vesting
30
10,
is exactly where I would want to be at.
That's pretty good to me. So I think that's worth exploring for them.
No.
Coming in the comments.
No.
Chris,
no, sir.
I don't think it's going to happen.
You're out of here, bud.
I like where your head's at. I don't think the Phillies are going to do that. And
would you guys like to know the one
Orioles
player
just traded for another starting pitcher in Shane Baz?
Would you like to know the one player that I would send Painter for?
Who's that?
Because their franchise is in complete disaster and apparently bankrupt.
Oh,
send Andrew Painter to the Padres for Fernando Tatis Jr.
I was going to say Jackson.
It's going to take a lot more than him, but woo, that would be.
It'll take more, but that's a big bill you're taking on.
I think it'd be less. Honestly, I think that the Padres need to move off that contract. I think the contract just tanks his value. You remember the Nolan Arenado trade a few years ago to the Padres?
Martian Painter for Fernando Tatis Jr. and the Phillies take on all the money.
I think less than that gets it done. I think significantly less than that gets it done. When guys who have
they're going to want a lot of prospects in return. They're not going to take
Nolan Arenado trade from a few years ago because that's the only comp we have for this.
No,
he's younger and better.
Fernando Tatis was younger.
Dude, Arenado won the MVP the next year after being traded.
Fernando Tatis is a platinum glover when he moved to the outfield and is literally one of the premier right fielders.
So is Nolan Arenado. They gave up.
But we're talking about years.
I understand that, but
it's
the only undefeated thing in baseball.
I agree. I do agree, but we need to look for a comparison. This is the only comparison we have. The Cardinals gave up Mateo Gil, Tony Losi, Jake Somers, Austin Gomber, and Alhuris Montero. None of those guys. I think there was one top 100 prospect. I think one. And I'm going to check that now.
I think you're talking about the conversations would start with Painter, and then you would make them pick one of whatever, outside of those top, or let's just call it one of the top three, but I'm assuming Painter. So Painter,
Gene
and then you're asking them to take on pick one of 3 guys from group 2. So Arun Escobar, take one of 3 guys from group 3. So Rincones, and then they're going to want a Stott or a Marsh or like this is not. And they're going to ask you to take back one of the other bad contracts. Like this isn't going to be, this is a salary that like they are going to wait as long as they can to maximize that value. Do you think that Steve Cohen and the Mets wouldn't be like, hey, not only will we give you 3 of our top young players and prospects, we'll not only take on Tatis, we'll take on the terrible Xander Bogaerts contract as well.
I don't think that they do.
They would be blown out of the water if their offer was Painter, Marsh, take it or leave it. Like the Padres, I don't care how broke you are, they would laugh at them and hang the phone.
I think if you're taking all the money back, I think that gets it done 100% of the time. I think Fernando Tatis's value is wrapped up in that contract, much as Nolan Arenado's value was wrapped up in his contract when he was traded. There was not one top 100 prospect in that trade. It was 4 throw-ins for Nolan Arenado. I'm not saying.
Yeah, but we're talking about a Rockies franchise.
I know. I'm not saying it's going to be the same deal.
They don't know how to do it. They don't know how to do their jobs.
I'm not saying it's the same deal, but like, Crawford and Painter or Painter and Escobar, I don't think you need a package to blow things out of the water. I think Fernando Tatis has moved pretty easily, and frankly, I'd be more interested in Jackson Merrill than Fernando Tatis.
Yeah, but I don't think they're going to do that either.
I don't think that they would do Jackson Merrill. But
if they were doing Jackson Merrill, they would expect even more in return.
I agree. I think Jackson Merrill will be more expensive than Tatis.
Yeah, it's that's interesting. But anyway, back to the catcher conversation. We did have a suggestion here. I don't know enough about him, but Chris mentioned a Pedro Perez trade to the Cardinals is intriguing. Cardinals are loaded on catchers. Perez, many years of club control, is 27 and is a real good defensive catcher. I'm not opposed to adding someone who's defense first, but you have to shore up some other spots, and there's some question marks in the outfield in that lineup where you almost kind of need the additional hitting that JT gives you, plus his familiarity with the team, with the clubhouse, with the pitching staff. The work he's done with those young pitchers and young catchers has been incredible. So I think you're leaning there, but you mentioned other options. What we talked about, Victor Caratini. There's Christian Vazquez out there, who's an offense first guy, and his offense is down. But guys like Mitch Garver's out there, Jonah Heim is out there. If they think that they can rehab one of those guys,
Pedro Perez is not a real player.
First guys.
That's not a real player. There's no one named Pedro Perez in the
Pedro Pajes.
Who'd you get us? Oh, Pedro Pajes. Come on, Chris. I went with you. That's all.
I looked him up. There's no Pedro Perez.
Pedro Pajes. I knew it all along. That's it. Yeah, I mean, he's 26. He'll be 27 coming in. He had a 230, 272, 363 slug, a 635 OPS, 11 homers and 15 doubles last year.
The guy only walked 19 times in 400 at bats or plate appearances. That's with a walk rate like that. I don't know.
Obviously, it would matter what they
at the AAA level. He hit 222. Just saying.
It would matter what they gave up for him, right? If you can. I wouldn't be opposed to making a move for a guy like that. It's going to depend on what you give up, but I wouldn't mind making a move for a guy like that in addition to signing JT or signing somebody else, right? Hey, you need catching depth, and they are slim pickings in the Phillies organization. Yeah. I wouldn't be opposed to making a move like that depending on what they're giving up.
I think the problem
do you think the Twins would trade Ryan Jeffers?
I've heard that rumor, like especially the Twins. They're open for business essentially, so I wouldn't be shocked if
I feel like it's a name they haven't mentioned as a no-trade guy, so
I would be really interested in him. And I think the other thing about Pajes is that like 70-80% of his value is wrapped up in framing, and now that that's going to largely be going away, I don't
think it's going to go away as much as people think, though. I know that there is that, like, you're going to have a limited number of options, right? So if I blow through those challenges early in the game, I still need to be able to frame, or I need to be able to frame for the time. If I make it questionable enough, a team might think, I'm going to save it for the 7th, and I still stole a strike early in the game that helps my pitcher out. So I think that frame, it's not going to go away. It's just going to be treated differently. It's still going to be a factor, though.
I agree.
I want to mention, because I've seen multiple people comment about Amai from Japan. Because apparently
we talked about him heavily last week. So, Alec, give us your thoughts. You weren't on the show.
Listen, I'd love nothing more than the Phillies to make a splash from Japan. And just like that, I got to go get the door. I'll be right back.
Okay.
I'll share my thoughts later.
Why don't you continue it a little bit there for us then, Ben, because you were high on him last Friday.
No, I think the big thing with Amaya, and I think the Phillies see this too, is that bringing someone like that in unlocks the rest of the market. I think that you kind of need someone here who speaks the language. Getting someone like Amaya who says that he wants to go to a team without any Japanese superstars is a rare thing. Most guys coming over want to have something established. So bringing him in, I think, sort of sets the table for the future. Also, very quickly on Ryan Jeffers, I think he'd be expensive. He's only got 1 year left until free agency. So, A, he would cost a lot of money next year if you want to re-sign him. And B, he's probably going to cost an Arun Escobar or someone of that ilk, lower top 100 prospect. Alec, you were saying on Tatsuya Amai, though.
Yeah, Tatsuya Amai. I'd love nothing more than the Phillies to dip their feet into the pool of Japanese players and stars and finally build some relationship there. I'd love nothing more for it. But I also, one of the things I hate the most are starting pitchers under 6 foot, and Amai is 5'10". And
Pedro Martinez, man.
Listen, the mold's been broken plenty of times. He could be good. It's just one of those like red flags that I'd be very excited if they sign Amai. Don't get me wrong. But it just worries me for no other reason than you just don't see many.
Yamamoto is shorter than him. Amaya is 5'11", and Yamamoto is 5'10". So he's 1 inch off.
It said Amaya was 5'10". I'm getting bad.
Well, it's probably, depending on who measured him that
on
day,
a good day, 5'11", on a bad day, 5'9.5".
You know who I don't want?
He's 6 foot the way that every dude in their 30s is 6 foot on dating apps, right? Like he's really 5'10",
I'm
5'11".
5'7", and I don't lie about it.
I do lie about it. I say I'm 6'1", so people actually know that I am actually 6 feet because I really am.
I'm 5'11", and people think I'm lying more than if I said I was 6 foot. Because people are like, oh, well, you don't want to lie about being 6 foot, so you say 5'11", that's the next best thing. You're really like 5'9". I'm like, bro, measure me.
Man, it's real tough for us.
I wish I was 5'9".
Oh boy.
So we talked about the catchers a little bit. I know we're getting towards the end of the show. I don't want to ignore chat. We'll get into that in a moment. But some of the comments from chat kind of lead us to the way that we're going to close things out before the Christmas holiday. We're not going to have an episode next Friday. We'll have one in the following week. And we're going to take the week off for the holidays, even though we just came back. So we've talked about the options that they brought in. We've talked about options at catcher. But everybody's hopeful out here, right? Everybody kind of hopes that the team does a little bit more than they've done so far. So, Ben, Alec, in the holiday spirit, regardless of the holiday, everybody gets gifts this time of year. We're going to keep it generic. We're going to go Xmas. Who would you like to see the Phillies deliver on Christmas Day under the tree? Who's at the top of your wish list? Alec, I'll start with you. Who's at the top of your wish list? Realistically, who's at the top of your wish list for the Phillies for 2026?
Realistically, and also just would be really funny. And also they could just churn him if it doesn't work out. But for Christmas, go get Big Christmas. Go get Big Christmas.
Okay.
No.
I know he hits under 200, but he hits bombs and Christmas trees. And his last name is Noel.
He's just
it. Big Christmas on Christmas.
You don't even like
Christmas
Adolis.
Christmas. Keep Christmas in Christmas with Big Christmas.
Oh, God, please, no. He had 1 home run. One.
I love it. I don't care, Ben.
My thing's not as funny as that. How am I going to follow it up? I was going to say
because I said be realistic. Alec is going for
too realistic.
Theme.
I don't want to believe.
Realistic.
Let me believe.
All right, well, let's go dream scenario then. Who do you think they?
Bichette. I would love for the Phillies people to trade Bohm and move Bichette to third. If he says he's open to move into second, why the hell not third base? He just needs to move off shortstop. He's an awful defender there. Stott, Turner, and Bichette and Harper. Excuse me, Bichette Turner, Stott, Harper is maybe the best infield in all of baseball. I mean,
Well,
both.
You just said how bad he was defensively at short, and he's never played third. So do we know he's going to be great at third? No,
but I
understand what you're saying here.
Guys who move off shortstop to third base generally are very good there. What Bichette lacks is the range. It's not the arm.
Right. That's the key. That is the key, is that his arm is still there. He can still play on that left side. But you mentioned it briefly. So my wish list would be another outfielder. I think that having a truly defined platoon partner with Brandon Marsh would help me feel a lot better about the outfield. I do have faith that Marsh will be fine. But if I went for that, I would think somebody like Miguel Andujar, Rob Refsnyder. I would have loved if they had gotten in the Taylor Ward conversation. If Joe Adell's available in trade, I like a lot of those options. But I don't want to ignore the chat, because chat blew up for us last week. We have a ton of viewers right now. We're going to wrap it up, but let's go through some of the options in chat before we do that. Before I bring up the first one, I want to mention.
And then I will also bring up
Harrison Bader, obviously that finished the season with the Phillies last year. What are your thoughts on him potentially coming back? They seem to be out of the conversation with him, but not fully. What are your guys' thoughts? Ben, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on Bader? Should they still be pursuing him to come back at this point?
Don't offer him any more than you'd offer Real Muto. I mean, I think they can sign both, but Bader has a career average lower than Johan Rojas. Like, I just let that sink in for a second. His career average is lower than Johan Rojas. He's not a good offensive player. I like him. I think that he can start for you in center field, but like he's fine. He's a fine ball player. Don't give him $20 million.
Okay, and first off, the first comment that I saw was from our boy Steve. What about bringing in Ketel Marte? Ben, we know from last Friday you weren't too high on that idea. So it doesn't have to be this particular trade, but Alec, I'm going to start with you. What are your thoughts on them bringing in Ketel Marte, and would Gage, Wood, Escobar, maybe plus another, get it done?
Listen, I would love to bring in Ketel Marte, but the Diamondbacks are rumored to want young starting pitching. Gage Wood doesn't get that done. Only Andrew Painter gets that done, and I just don't think that's worth the price tag. He is going to be under control for, I think, like 4 or 5 years, but he's already like 32 for Marte. Yeah. So you'd have him till he's 37. Could the bat hold up a little bit? Sure, but I just don't think it's going to work out for the Phillies. I was big on getting Marte and putting him in right field, but I just don't think the Phillies have what they need to get a deal done. So
I think they do, but it's a matter of, are you willing to pay that price, right? It would be Andrew
are you
Painter
willing to send out
Bryson
Andrew
Stott
Painter
plus Rincones or somewhat like, or Arun Escobar, right? Like you're talking about, are you willing to trade 2 of your 3 top prospects and your Gold Glove caliber second baseman? Probably not. Ben, you laid heavily into that, but if you have any other comments on it,
I love Marte. Got a great contract. Don't give him Andrew Painter. If you want to move Gage Wood, if the Diamondbacks want to do that deal, if you want to pull it back up, I believe it was Gage Wood, Dante Nori, and Arun Escobar for Ketel Marte. Great, absolutely do that. But they're not going to accept it. It's not enough. They won't.
Yeah, they will get beat. But I think that, Steve, you're on the right track. Like, if you wanted to put together the ideal package from the Phillies' perspective, I don't think that the Phillies would balk at that idea. I think that the Diamondbacks would be the one to say no if we're playing the who says no game. We went into some of the stars of Japan last Friday. We went into Imai just now. Another comment from Asher. Kazuma Okamoto. He is a corner infielder, played a little bit of corner outfield as well. Good pop. Do you think if they can't break into the market through Imai, should they go for Okamoto and potentially replace Bohm at third base with a masher from Japan?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's taking a real big swing because he's not going to be cheap. And, a lot of those guys from Japan just don't really pan out in MLB. He hit 40 home runs. Okamoto hit 41 home runs in 2023. And, you think, oh, wow, that'd be great power if he can translate that over. If anyone remembers Akinori Iwamura, who I was just looking at his stats from the other day, played against the Phillies in the 2008 World Series, hit I don't think he ever hit more than 6 or 7 home runs in Major League Baseball. Hit 44 in one season in Japan. So I'm just not trusting the power. I'm trusting the defense for sure. I've heard a lot of good things about Okamoto's defense, and I'd love to have a Gold Glover over there at the hot corner. But you're taking a big swing there, and if it's a miss, that's really going to hurt you. The Phillies already have a way too much money locked up in dead contracts. I'd love to see it. I think it'd be really fun, but who the hell knows?
The rumors on a deal for him are the kind of the rough average is 4 years, 64, so 16 mil a season.
I do that.
Not bad for a guy who can pop the ball out of the ballpark. He slugs 501 in his career over there, but doesn't mean that that's going to necessarily translate to the same level. So a career 856 OPS is incredible in Japan. It would obviously be incredible over here. He is right-handed, so you wouldn't be replacing a righty with a lefty like a lot of the moves have been. They do still need another right-handed bat. It would be interesting. They would have to find a trade partner for Alec Bohm as well to make that work.
So real quick, Kyle, there. Sorry, just to amend one thing. You're including minor leagues. It's actually even better than that. His slugging is 521 in NPB, and his OPS is 882. Sorry, Alec, please.
I was gonna say, if you want to talk about 880s OPS, I think if we're talking about a dream swing, and I don't care about his defense, go get Munetaka Murakami. That stat was proven wrong.
Yep. That was a big false narrative that was released on him that he had 56 against fastballs greater than 93. The numbers are so much better than that. Go take a look.
So much better.
I was fooled by it first too because it was tweeted by some reputable people. Go ahead, Alec.
Career OPS in the MPB, which is notoriously hard to hit in and pitching heavy, 951. 951 OPS.
Dang.
Like that's crazy. He was at 1051 last year, OPS wise. This dude's a tank. I don't care if his defense is like 2024 Alec Bohm at third. I really don't.
Now, how old is he? Because I know Okamoto is entering his age 30 season this year.
Well, he's entering his age 26 season.
Yeah, he's
going. Still, that's
so
even
he'll
younger.
Be 26 in spring training.
Man, that would be something. But
you're getting younger. Listen, I'm cool with it. If he needs to move to first base for a little bit of a stretch, I think you could you could figure out something. We could figure out something. We could figure it out.
And Murakami's someone worth keeping an eye on. The deadline for his posting is this coming Monday.
I was gonna say, isn't it
something that you're gonna have to keep a close eye on him for sure.
Wait, as in the 22nd?
Yeah.
So that's 3 days away.
Yeah. So his market's gonna move. Now it is.
What about
he is a lefty, and he's not known to be the greatest defender. So you'd be replacing.
I heard him.
I don't know how much that matters in the grand scheme of things, but it's something to consider for sure.
I've heard Amai is rumored to be looking for was it between 160 to 200 million, something like that?
That's what I've seen.
Yeah. I was actually asking about the posting deadline, which I did just confirm is January 2nd.
I was going to say.
Whose deadline did I see there? Hold on.
No. Murakami, I believe you're right on.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, I just saw it on MLB.com.
No. So Amai is January 2nd. Okamoto is January 4th.
Okay.
So a little bit more time on him. It doesn't seem like I'm looking right now. The latest on the rumors, the Red Sox are rumored if they miss out on bringing back who's the
Bregman.
Alex Bregman. There we go. Woo. Padres, but again, they're going to have to get rid of some money before they bring in adding more. Cubs, they're a team that's been rumored. Angels need a third baseman bad. D-backs were connected to a third baseman. I doubt that they would go for him, or he would go for them rather, but they need both a first and a third baseman. Pirates might do a swing. I doubt he wants to go there, but they might swing another big offer to tell their fans that they're at least acting serious. So it would be interesting to say the least.
Didn't they get Yoshi? Oh, what was his name? Yoshinobu. Sasugo. Do you
Wasn't that
guys
the
remember Yoshi
Orioles? I thought
Sasugo?
The
wasn't that the
Rays?
Orioles?
No,
or
he
was that
signed
the-
with the Rays,
Oh,
but he
the
ended his
Pirates.
career with the Pirates.
Yes, I do remember him. He was not good.
No, he was not. Let me look at his Japanese stats real quick to see how he compared. Because I remember
he was
kind
more
of
of a
wanting
DH,
Yoshi
though.
Sasugo.
Yeah, I
That
remember
would be
that too.
interesting, though. Still be interesting.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
a lot more
It's
like
just
Okamoto.
Brandon Lau, so maybe they're out on him. But
yeah, he would definitely be closer to Okamoto, but he did have some really good offensive stats in Japan from like 2015, 2016. 2016, he was crazy.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
1.116 for anyone curious. He had 45 home runs.
wow.
Yeah, and it's 38 in 2018. So, I mean, that goes to show you. You never know.
Doesn't always translate. Sometimes
No.
you get Shohei, sometimes you get Yoshitomo Tsutsugo.
Sometimes you get Yoshi Yamamoto, sometimes you get Yoshi Sasugo.
Yeah, I regardless, for if I'm being realistic, I'd take a back to my wish. I'd take a right-handed platoon partner. If I'm going over the top, I'd say Amai for sure. It would be interesting to see what happens the rest of the year. I think the number one thing that the Phillies are going to be focused on is JT. But we said that last week, and they made a ton of moves. So we'll have to see. Revamp the bullpen, added a right fielder, improved the defense overall, and they are still not done. Guys, before we wrap it up, any last thoughts on the Phillies' moves today, in the past week, and what you hope to see for the rest of the year?
I'm still excited about Yoniel Curat. I don't care that he doesn't get any
Yeah.
coverage. I think he's going to be good.
I liked that move. I
Another
really liked that
another
move.
young rehab move. I don't hate it.
And coming from the Rays, you never know. But I did really like that too, Ben, that move. I liked the McCambly pick from the Rule 5. I think he's got a good chance to stick. Again, love the Brad Keller signing. I'm really excited for Brad Keller, which is so odd because I feel like nobody said that a year ago. And now it's the
He
first
wasn't
time.
very good.
Kind of minor league invite to camp for the Cubs.
But
someone who
as
used to take him in fantasy as a streamer on the starting end all the time, I'm very glad that he was good last year, and I won't have to drop him after picking him up. That's what I'll say.
As the realistic possible future signing, I do like Miguel Andujar if they can get him. I know people have mentioned like Rob Refsnyder as like a lefty platoon for Marsh. I think he'd be good, and I think he'd be cheap. I think he'd be a perfect complement as well. But I do kind of like betting on Miguel Andujar's increase in his batting average the past 2 seasons.
Contact first, especially against left-handed pitching. Not a big strikeout or swing out of the zone type of guy. So I think he'd be a good fit. But they seem pretty dead set on Otto Kemp. They also have Weston Wilson. They've also experimented with Edmundo Sosa out there. So they have a few options internally. I think the most likely result will be that they let those guys go to start the season. And then maybe if Randall Grichuk's still there in May, they go and
I'm
get a
fine
guy
with Otto Kemp. I'm fine for defending the Ottoman Kempire. I'm fine with funding funding Kemp farms. I've heard Kemp is a very good, useful material for many things, not just what the politicians want you to think Kemp is good for.
Also,
Ben, any final thoughts?
I'm very sad about the Phillies book club. Apparently, Otto Kemp just posted an Instagram story about losing Matt Strahm. They're all very sad about it.
Oh, they had a book club?
They had a book club.
Oh, man.
I didn't know about the book club.
It's the first question I'm asking when I get down there this year.
Yeah,
what happens to the book club? Who now is the leader of the book club?
This is the
I don't know that Strahm was necessarily the leader of the book club, but they're losing an important member for sure.
For sure.
That's
well,
so sad.
Ben and Alec, regardless of what holidays you celebrate, I wish them to be amazing for you guys. We mentioned at the top, we mentioned in the middle, Alley Talk will be taking next week off, but we'll be back in the new year on January 2nd. Me and whoever's available from the team, whoever's not too hungover from the celebrations of the holidays, they will join me the 2nd at 2 p.m. on Philly Sports Network here on Alley Talk. Anything for you guys to plug on the way out the door?
Nothing different from last week. I'm working on the highlight mix for the 2025 Phils. This is the first year it has not brought me any joy. Please watch it. Go check out Nothing If Not Inconsistent. Sorry, Alec, go ahead.
I might move to Lancaster soon, but outside of that,
Sweet.
I ain't got anything to plug right now.
Well, he didn't. Well, Alec did do a nice piece on the news that broke today.
That's true.
Ben is back in the rhythm of things while he's not attending classes, so he'll be back not only on the show but with some writing. Myself, I will be back with some writing sooner rather than later. And just make sure you stay tuned at Philly Sports Network. We have a bunch of great writers, no paywalls, no nothing, just love of the game for the love of the fans. We appreciate everybody checking it out. Love the activity in the comments today. Steve, Asher, Alex, Chris. Again, we're taking next week off, but make sure you stay tuned. All of our handles are here. If any news breaks, you can be 100% certain that I will put out a reaction video to it, as I have done for the last few moves. Guys, appreciate your time today. Appreciate everybody in the comments. This is a place of love of each other, respect of each other, love of the game, respect of the game. We're not here for hot takes. We're here for you guys and to explore to express our passions. Appreciate everybody's time. Have a great holiday, and we'll see you in the new year here on Alley Talk.